Welcome to Think and Thrive, our speaker series here at Sunmarke. And today we are really honored to welcome our very first doctor to the Think and Thrive stage. The idea behind Think and Thrive is that students have a chance to meet successful professionals in a field that they might be interested in. And so today we have Dr. Marc Sinclair, who is the head of orthopedic surgery at King's College Hospital here in Dubai. He also has expertise in pediatrics. And in addition to that, and please feel free to ask him questions, he's involved in refugee work, working with children that have issues as a result of war in terms of helping with surgery. So please do feel free to ask him about that when the Q&A starts. We'll first have a discussion, and thank you so much to the team that came up with all the questions. So it's Sarah, Salma, and Hassan came up with the questions. Everybody that's sitting here, I know, has an interest in becoming a doctor. So Dr. Sinclair, you do have a group of aspiring doctors right in front of you. Yeah. And without further ado, I am now turning it over to Sarah Barake, our Year 13 moderator and aspiring doctor herself, and Dr. Marc Sinclair. Thank you very much.
Welcome to Sunmarke School, Dr. Sinclair.
Thank you, Sarah.
As Ms. Amber said, you're the first doctor to be on the series, so this is very exciting. Today we're going to start off with a couple of personal questions, just to kind of get to know you. Then we're going to move on to professional questions to do with your job. And then we're going to have rapid fire questions where you're going to have 10 seconds to answer the questions.
Sounds fantastic.
Okay. First of all, so besides that staring at bones all day, what do you think your purpose is in life?
My purpose in life? That's an excellent question. I think this question needs a lifetime to answer, right? So I'm more than halfway through, so I can give you my few ideas about it. I do think that there are certain ways of living a life, and I think we discover the way we want to live our lives over time. And I think overall, I think life is a discovery, right? I think to me, being here as I am, this is the only time it's going to be in a, if you look at it from an evolutionary point of view. And I think being in the world, living in the world, interacting with the world in a way that doesn't harm what is there, I think is the main purpose, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. If you could invite any two people, alive or dead, who do you think they would be?
I was thinking about that question, really difficult. I think the first one is easier. My father passed away early, so if I could bring him back and have a chat with him, I think if you have parents that pass away early in life, you miss the conversation you could have when you're both adults. So I'd love to have that conversation with him. And that's one person I certainly would like to invite to that dinner table. And the second person is really difficult, right? Because there's lots of famous, interesting thinkers. But I think a guy like, talk about Leonardo Da Vinci, for example, somebody who was the last person who knew everything there was to know in his lifetime, living in a time when, at least in Europe, Dark Ages were over, Renaissance came in, and he was just a prolific writer, an inventor, an artist. I think somebody like him would be really interesting, not necessarily for what he's done, but the way he was thinking and how he helped, culture essentially evolve within Europe in the 14th and 15th century.
100%. You mentioned your dad. How do you think your childhood was growing up?
Well, overall, quite happy. I mean, my parents separated when I was 6, so I was largely brought up by my mother, but I had a very good relationship to my father. In Germany, at the time, it was fairly conservative. I always felt a little bit out of place simply because I don't have these two German parents. We spoke different language. We spoke English at home, not German. So, and Germany is a very homogenous place. Some countries are less, say, culturally mixed than others, and Germany is quite, straight, and still today, actually. Yeah. So I think I didn't fit in that well. I wasn't the popular guy at school, for sure. But I think I knew pretty early on where I wanted to take my path, and I think I've been relatively good at following that.
Well, you just said you lived in Germany, so
yeah.
What do you think your favorite country is?
I really like traveling a lot because I think part of that, being in the world, immersing yourself in this experience we call life, I think traveling is essential in meeting people. And I've only recently got to know Japan over the last couple of years, which I think is an amazing place just because it's very different in every aspect. But I'm very much drawn to South America for some reasons. I think that South America has a mix of obviously Western culture where I feel comfortable in. There are certain cultures that are so far away that you feel like a stranger, right? So South America has a culture that I personally can relate to, but it has, I think, very strong, say family values, more conservative in a certain way. So I really like that mix of exotic place plus a culture that I understand and can relate to.
Is there a specific country you would like to visit that you haven't yet?
I've visited quite a lot of countries in South America. My wife's from Brazil, so I know Brazil quite well. And I really particularly like Ecuador as well as a country. My father lived in Chile before he passed away, so I've been in Chile quite a lot as well. And honestly, every of those countries has its own different, little special strangenesses in terms of their culture, in terms of how they interact. We like to lump it together to South America, a bit like what we do with Africa very often. But actually every country has really its own merits.
What do you think is your most treasured memory?
I guess difficult, right? I mean, if we talk about profession, certainly being accepted to medical school was pretty cool. I was not the best student. I'm sure all of you are a lot better students than I was. And so getting to medical school was a big deal for me. In Germany, we had an aptitude test. I don't know if this still exists, which is where you have to do three-dimensional figuring and a really strange test. I did really, really well in that one. So that kind of got me to medical school. Not that everybody should count on that one, but so that was a big day for me because I didn't really expect that I'd get in, and I was really happy, I think, to go down a path that I chose for myself.
Yeah, it's hard and it's something very impressive.
Especially with the grades I had. Now we're going to talk about that. So.
What is something that keeps you awake at night?
Patience. and we're going straight into this profession thing, right? When you have patience and you're responsible for people and you do surgeries and most of them go well, but there's always something that's not great, right? It goes for every profession. Like you're an artist, one picture might not be the one that the way you wanted it. If you're a lawyer, one case might not have gone the way you want. But when you're a doctor and something doesn't go ideally, and your conscience keeps nagging, right? So you lie in bed and it literally keeps you awake at night. And I think when you choose to be a doctor, you need to understand one of the things is that you can't just, you don't leave the office and that's it. That's why I love the idea of being a pilot, You park your plane, I don't know if they have keys, but take the key out and you're done. With a doctor, you don't have that. So I think, especially as a doctor, your patients keep you up at night for sure.
Yeah, of course.
All the time.
You can't just leave your patients.
Yeah, exactly.
What is your favorite book?
Mysticism is something I really enjoy for various reasons, and I like Paulo Coelho, who probably all of you know quite well, and The Alchemist is certainly one of his big books. He has other books as well, but I like the idea of The Alchemist because to me it's, many of you have probably read the book, and it is ultimately about searching for something that at the end of the day, interestingly, he finds in his backyard. So I think it's a kind of it describes life quite nicely, right? When you're young and you go out and you look for things, but the important things really, you don't have to travel for them, right? They're there, but it takes a long way. You have to make that path in order to find them. So I think The Alchemist is a nice tale in that respect.
100%. It's a good book. Is there a specific quote you live your life by?
Codes?
Yeah, or like a motto.
I think do no harm is important. I think tolerance is important, and I think we need to identify injustice, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. But I think when something is wrong, I think you need to call it out. I think that's important, and I think you need to live your life without harming others. I think by that, if you live by those two principles, I think you'll do good.
Yeah. What do you think you're most grateful for in your life today?
My family, my upbringing, and just the fortune of being where I am, I think.
Yeah. Well, if you believe in past life, what do you think you might have been?
I don't know. I mean, I strongly believe that we're all part of this bigger thing, for sure. I'm not a religious person, but I'm certainly, I guess, spiritual, you would call it. And we've been part of everything, right? So I don't think anything in particular.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer to that question.
Okay. Is there anything you've dreamed of doing and you still haven't done it yet? It can be something very simple. It doesn't have to be major.
I'm not going to skydive. I'd love to do it, but I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
I can't. Has anybody skydived? No? Good. Okay, don't do it.
No.
I think it's scary as hell.
So nothing
No.
particular. Okay.
I try to do, listen, I mean, there are many things that we want to do, right? But many things that activities that we do don't really, it's not what you do, it's what you take out of it, I think, you know? And in that respect, I think I'm living life to a point where I have done the things I want to do to process the experiences that I think are important in life.
100%. Can you describe yourself in 3 to 5 words?
Compassionate, social, interested. Is 3 enough?
Yeah. How do you think your childhood affected the person you are today, especially in your field?
Strangely enough, I come from a family of doctors, and I didn't know that when I chose to do this. I'm not one of these, oh, my dad's a doctor, my grandfather's a doctor. My father actually was, my parents were, none of them were doctors. But I think growing up in a very mixed family, my mother's German, my father was Hungarian. I actually was born in Belgium, I grew up in Spain, went to so all these things really created interest in cultures, in people. And my father certainly was a people's person. So I think if at all, I think he influenced me to choose a profession or a life that has to do with communication rather than with numbers.
Yeah. How did you decide medicine is something you wanted to get into?
For that reason, right? I mean, there's nothing more interpersonal than studying or being a doctor. I mean, you could become a priest, but I don't think I qualify for that. I mean, that's another profession where people open up and where you get to know people beyond the surface, which I'm really interested in. And I think being a doctor is something that gives you the privilege of getting into other people's lives, which I think is the essence of being a doctor, right? Apart from helping people.
In your opinion, what do you think the most powerful invention in medicine is, and why?
Well, there's 2, right? For me as a surgeon, there's anesthesia, for sure. I mean, if anesthesia has enabled all the surgical specialties, and asepsis, right? I mean, if you look at medieval pictures of how they, cut off limbs and people, so as an orthopedic surgeon, anesthesia must be the best invention to enable what I do.
What do you think they still need to invent? Something that's going to be like groundbreaking? Well,
I think back to orthopedics, I think if you look at what orthopedics does, they do lots of joint replacements, right? We age, and I think our bodies were not made to age 80, 90 years, right? So the aging process is an issue, and I think if we can find a way to slow the aging process, and that's not to have a longer life or anything, it's just to live a more active life for longer, I think that would be a great invention. Yeah.
Do you believe that there's already a cure for cancer, but governments...
That was such a... Go ahead.
But governments kind of shut it down because it's something very beneficial for them because they make lots of money.
No, I'm not a conspiration guy. My son is, right? Everything, there's always a second story. And I do believe that with social media, with the way we receive information today, conspiracy theorists have a huge platform. But I think you need to also... be commonsensical about it, right? And if there were a leader that is hiding it and had cancer, it would leak, I think. I believe in the good in people. I'm an optimist. I'm perhaps naive as well. And I do believe that certain stories are not the way they're told. But this seems a little bit very constructed to me.
Controversial. Why did you choose to become an orthopedics and not any other type of doctor?
I wanted to do surgery. I wanted to be a surgeon, not a internal medicine person. I did want the manual kind of part of it, the mechanical part of it. And I chose it from other subspecialties in surgery. So, you know, you have urology, gynecology, hand surgery. I mean, you have tons of smaller areas in surgery.
Yeah.
And orthopedics really appealed to me because I think you make a big impact in somebody's life if you have a deformity, for example. So it changes people's lives beyond just that the leg is straight or functional. And to be honest, it's also not necessarily always having you involved with significant diseases like cancer, terminal illnesses, because it wouldn't be a healthy environment for me, I think.
Yeah.
There are other people that really like to be right there, life and death. It's not me.
Yeah. If you weren't in orthopedics, what type of doctor would you prefer being?
I'm now doing actually a master's in global health, and I'm really excited about that. So I think global health or public health is a huge area, and I think if you're looking at impact, like how many lives you change and how, you know, the big impact, the big changes in terms of healthcare on our planet is made by public health and global health specialists. So I think that would be something I'd be really interested in. Something completely different to surgery, right? Yeah.
Do you think the pandemic has affected you as a doctor? Do you feel more inspired because you now understand how important doctors actually are?
The what? Sorry, I didn't get that.
The pandemic.
The pandemic. Not so much in my area, to be honest. And again, we're talking about fake news and stuff. There's been a lot out there with the pandemic, and I think if at all, it shows that we have to really listen to specialists and not always worry about if their information, their intentions is fake or if it has other motives. I think at some point you just need to listen to the specialists, and I think we've lost that a little bit over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, especially in the US, obviously there was a lot of discussion about what you have to do, what you cannot do, is it dangerous or not. Listen to the specialists.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Easy.
That's what I've learned from the pandemic. Listen to the specialists.
What's something difficult about studying medicine and becoming a surgeon that isn't talked about enough?
No, I think, I mean, lots of doctors will say, don't study medicine. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Everything's a lot of work today. Competition is vicious, right? It doesn't matter what you want to do. And the reward of medicine is great, because if you like to interact, if you like to be with people, that's honestly the best profession out there. I think getting in is difficult, but that's just because our population is growing and the universities are not growing at the same speed. So I think the competition getting into medical school is not becoming easier, also because it's an international platform, right? You compete with patients not just from your school here, but from China, from Russia. Anybody can apply anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think the criteria to enter a good school are becoming increasingly difficult.
Yeah. How would you personally want to change the current healthcare system?
I think privatization is a problem, right? I think when you look at different healthcare models, if you have a welfare state, say the Scandinavian countries or Germany, you have a basic healthcare system that covers pretty much everything to an acceptable level. Private healthcare systems, just such as in the US or to some degree also here in the UAE, you know, lots of people don't get adequate health care because they don't have the insurance. And I don't think that is a sign of a healthy society or government. I think the basic needs for everybody needs to be covered, and universal health care is a big thing people are talking about. The big challenge is how do you pay for it, right? Universal health care, which opens the next big questions, like if you cannot pay universal health care for everybody, who do you not pay it for?
Yeah.
And that's a difficult one to discuss, right?
Well, the audience has lots of inspiring doctors.
Yes.
What's one piece of advice you would give them?
I think they've made a good choice. That's the beginning of a great career. Hang in there, right? I think at the end of the day, as I said, it's very difficult to get into medical school. If you can't get in there directly, choose something that's related to it. We talked about other areas of biology, global health. I have a daughter of a friend who's now doing a public health, global health bachelor's, which gives you time to learn about medicine, about what really matters, and then apply as a graduate student. But I think if you really think medicine is what you want to do, I'd go for it, and don't be deterred.
Could you remember your first surgery you ever did?
I can't. I was thinking about it. I cannot. I just know I was really scared because I remember the first time you're in surgery and you're standing there all scrubbed up and looking like a real doctor, and then the surgeon that does the surgery, you're assisting obviously at the beginning, cuts the skin, right, and starts bleeding, and you look at that, and because you haven't seen that before. It's really, it's very strange, and it's interesting how you then, as you progress towards being a surgeon, it becomes abstract, right?
Yeah.
The cutting of the skin, the sawing of bones, the putting in plates and screws becomes something very abstract.
Yeah.
And I think it goes for every profession, but if at all, saying the first times you go into surgery and you see this happening was a quite interesting experience.
Well, is there a specific surgery that you remember doing, like your favorite one, or is there anything particular you like performing?
Not really. I don't think so. I think orthopedics was always interesting to me, and certainly watching or assisting in hip replacements, which are fairly big surgeries, was certainly something that I thought, yep, I want to do that. So that put me along the way.
Okay. Well, if you could describe a dermatologist in one word, what would it be?
Boring. No. A dermatologist.
Yeah.
That was not a good answer, right? No, dermatologists are really important, and listen. If you look at what you want to do in medicine, you need to look into what you want to get out of life, right? My brother, for example, is like an emergency physician in Europe. He rides the ambulances. He's seen people decapitated in car accidents, suicides, and he really, not that he likes seeing that, but he really enjoys that adrenaline thing.
Yeah.
That's not me, and I think you need to decide what you want to do. You might say, I want to be a doctor, but you know what? I want a 9-to-5 job. Then being a radiologist, a dermatologist, anesthesiologist, those are all good options. That never was really a way of thinking for me. I really wanted to go into a surgical field. And if you go into a surgical field, you need to invest the time, and kind of already defines your life a little bit. You're going to be busy, right? So dermatology, I don't understand it, to be honest. Yeah.
We got that. What about pediatrics? How would you describe that in one word?
Important. I think the healthcare system, if you judge a healthcare system by how they treat the vulnerable in society, that's how you can see how your government cares about you, right? If you live in a society that doesn't care about the children or the old, then I think it's a broken system, right? You need to look at people that don't contribute to society. And depending on how we treat those people, I think that's how you judge whoever's taking care of your country.
Well, obviously doctors have lots of stereotypes, such as being really professional all the time, being scary, which you're not, by the way.
I'm not scary, good.
Is there a stereotype that you think is like true?
No.
No?
I think that all stereotypes come from old times, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about the priests, right?
Yeah.
The priest, the teacher, and the doctor, right? In I don't know, 100 years ago, those were the people that people trusted, right? That opened up to, and there was a lot of responsibility. So this whole God in white, when people walked around and professor, this and that, it's gone away for teachers. You would probably in some ways, right? And I think doctors are on the same path, and I think it's a good thing. Second opinions, for example, right?
Yeah.
Don't put the doctor on a pedestal, but the patient might say, I'm going to get another opinion, and that's fine. We actually encourage that, but it is a new way, and it certainly demystifies the doctor in the white coat.
If you could start all the way from the beginning of your medical school journey, is there anything you would do different?
I would do residency in the U.S.
Oh.
I think the U.S. has a very good and very structured way of teaching residents, once you've chosen what your specialty is, to take you through every aspect of that specialty. In Germany and Switzerland, where I did most of my residency, or all of it actually, it's learning by doing a lot. So you have to kind of do surgeries in all areas, but it's your responsibility. It's nobody there that tutors you, who leads you. And if the American system is good in one thing, it is about mentorship.
Yeah.
And I think professors in the US understand that mentorship is part of being a good doctor professor, whereas in Europe, as a medical student or a resident, you always depend on the mercy of the head of department if you can or cannot do the surgery. So I think residency in the US would be great. Trying to convince my daughter, she's a 4th-year medical student, but she does not want to go to the US. I'm still working on it.
Well, now we're going to move on to the rapid fire. We're only going to have 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Should someone be allowed to sell their organs?
Yes. But
Go
can
on.
I do a bet?
Yeah.
But you shouldn't be able to buy it. I think the danger obviously is the abuse, and but I do believe that everybody has the right to decide of his own body.
Okay. At what point is a person dead?
I would go for the medical, right? The EEG is probably what I would count as dead. If there's no EEG and the brain is dead, then the person is dead.
What's the worst thing about being a doctor?
There's nothing bad about being a doctor.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
Okay.
positive.
How would you describe a human to an alien?
Alien.
Yeah. What is your spirit animal?
I like elephants.
If you could change anything about the world, what would it be?
Money.
What specialty do you get along best with?
Pediatricians.
Oh. If you had to remove something from the world, what would it be?
Money.
Where does power in a person come from?
From others. I'm saying this, I was thinking about that, right? What is power? But I mean, at the end of the day, you don't have power unless the others give you the power.
Power, yeah, 'cause authority.
Right?
Yeah. What do you believe happens after somebody dies?
I don't know. I think we can go into this whole,
Yeah, spiritual, controversial.
I think we're still part of something bigger that we don't understand.
Yeah.
But I think that, that's 10 seconds. But I think I like to think of life more in a qualitative aspect than in a quantitative. And I think we do too much numbers and too less thinking about the bigger picture. So
Yeah.
I think there's something there, but I have no clue what that is.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I'm done with my questions, but I'm pretty sure people in the audience have some questions, so
I'd
we'll
be
go
happy
ahead
to
and
answer.
ask
Yeah,
them.
sure, of course.
I wanted to ask more about, the other things that you do, about the UNHCR and those things that you help out with.
Yes. So
What exactly do you do?
So when I came to Dubai, and Dubai is a very money-oriented place, right? So, but it also gives you opportunities. I think Dubai is also a place of opportunities, for sure. And the idea of doing charity was always, and we didn't touch on that, but it was always part of what I really wanted to do as a doctor. And to be fair, most people will forget about that aspect, right? You study medicine because you help people, and then you get sucked into residency, and then you want a good job, and it keeps you going, and then you forget about certain aspects why you chose to become a doctor. So being in Dubai and having that extra time and the space to create a charity with a few other people, we created a charity which is registered in the UK and is now actually a partner with Al Jalila Foundation, where we treat children in less fortunate Middle Eastern countries. So we go to Palestine a lot. I'm actually leaving for Gaza tomorrow, where we treat children with congenital malformations. They're born with deformities of the legs, spine, arms, or children that have suffered injuries due to not always war-related, but also car accidents and stuff like that. So that really gives me a little bit of sanity compared to my 9-to-5 job, and it's really important. So I go twice a year. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, it was not possible, but I'm really excited to go tomorrow, to leave tomorrow for a 10-day. We do 10-day missions, so we go to other countries. We provide surgery to about 30, 40 children. We screen about 100, 150 children, and kind of contribute a little bit to the situation over there.
Is there actually nothing negative about being a doctor?
You see, I'm not a negative person, so maybe there is. I don't think so. I think I've chosen well. I love the profession. I think it is a privileged profession because you get to know people, and that's my fuel. Talking to people, spending real moments with people, for me, is really important. And if at all, I think that's really, really important when in the mix of making a good doctor. So if you do it for the fame, if you do it for the science, you can do it for many reasons, become a doctor. But I think if you don't really like if you're more of a person that doesn't like to communicate, I think it is difficult, right? You can become a dermatologist. No, just kidding. but no, just kidding. But I think that's really important. And I think that you have to ask yourself before you get into medicine. I think parents are going to hate me for saying this, but what about a gap year? Doing some voluntary work, really going out there and seeing, is this something for me? Do I really like to engage with people? Because fair enough, there are people that don't enjoy it that much, right? There are people that rather sit in front of their computer and, I don't know, do financial stuff. And to become a good doctor, I think it's the knowledge and it's obviously the academia, but it's also the willingness to kind of dive in and experience life in a sense, right?
How old were you when you started earning a wage as an orthopedic surgeon? Because it's kind of like this stigma that it takes a long
Is that
time.
your concern with medicine?
No,
Listen, I mean, in medicine, you finish high school, 17, 18, you go to medical school for 6 years, and then you're 24, 25, so you go into residency, and you do earn as a resident. It's not great, right? But you do make money. You might need your parents to support you a little bit down the line, but once you're an orthopedic surgeon, which takes another 5 years, and so it takes you to the end of your 20s. The good thing about being a doctor, though, is that you don't really have to worry about job security, right? I mean, as it stands, the population's growing. You've obviously all grown up in very privileged families because we're in Dubai just by definition compared to 95% of the rest of the world. So I don't think that you have to worry about not finding a job. And that's a big thing in today's time, right? So once you become a doctor, you become a specialist, yes, you have a job security, and most of these jobs pay well or well enough to have, a family to follow whatever your dreams are. So yes, it might be a bit later than if you just do a bachelor's and go straight into work, but I think it's your entry level is much higher.
What do you think about over-prescribing medication?
It's a good question, right? I mean, this is a big problem, right? Because obviously, over-prescribing antibiotics, for example, the complications of that, but also other medications that are not even proven that much. So doctors are very much exposed to the industry. Talking about medication that's supposed to reduce your cholesterol, for example, lots of different aspects or opinions about that. And at the end of the day, you need to be judicious in what you prescribe. I think a good doctor has honest conversations with their patients, and I think if you don't have a proven benefit or if it's discussed, you just pass that discussion on. You can't know everything. And if something is not clear or questionable, if you make decisions together, and that also goes for surgical procedures, for example, you need to discuss openly with the patient. This is a surgery or medicine we're going to give you. There is this we believe is better than not taking it, but we don't know, and you make the decision together. And I think if you do that, even if you make the wrong decision, which we all make wrong decisions, and it's taken in a team, patient, doctor, then it's fine, because we all make mistakes. But I do agree that that's a big problem, and I think that doctors are responsible to reduce the prescription if not necessary.